Guy Barnett does have a lot to answer for because he's treating workers with absolute contempt. He won't even meet with workers that this directly affects. He writes a 2-page letter, really just writing back things that we've told him. He gets facts wrong.
Currently, many healthcare workers across Tasmania are having their long service leave stripped from them, and HACSU wants to see that changed across care, aged care, disability and community services. Joining us from HACSU, Robbie Moore, the State Secretary. Thanks for joining us, Robbie.
Hi, Esther.
And Chelsea Menzie, a HACSU organiser. Thanks, Chelsea.
Hey, Esther.
Chelsea, can I start with you? I know you're fighting for it across all those sectors, but let's just say I'm a disability support worker. What is happening to me right now in terms of long service leave?
Yeah, well, the issue that we're seeing, particularly in disability, but in these other sectors as well, such as community services and aged care, is that often people are not getting their long service leave entitlements. And that's because, often we see companies change hands or participants or clients moving from service to service. And the choice that you have as a worker is, do I give up my long service leave to go and continue caring for this person and supporting them, or do I stay, but potentially I can't continue to work with this person that I've built a relationship with? So it's a really difficult position that lots of people are in the sector at the moment.
So how would it work in theory, the portable long service scheme?
The idea is that largely the entitlement stays the same, but what happens at the moment is that service or continuous service only counts with the employer that you're with. So the idea is to introduce some aspect of portability, so that no matter where you're working in community, aged care or disability services, those entitlements come with you.
Robbie, we're going to get into your back and forth with the Deputy Premier, Guy Barnett, shortly. But there is already a scheme like this, isn't there, in Tasmania with construction workers?
That's correct. So we've got TasBuild, which covers the entire construction industry in Tasmania. In fact, every other state has it in the construction industry as well. And TasBuild's a really successful scheme. That means that, somebody could be working, say, on the Bridgewater Bridge, and then if they move to the stadium or another project, because they're working in the same industry, often it changes between contractors, but they get to keep their entitlement. And it's been such a successful scheme, TasBuild, that premiums have gone down for employers and entitlements have got better for workers because they've been able to invest the money successfully as well.
And how long has that model been going for?
The construction industry actually got a portable long service leave scheme in the 70s. So it's been in place for 50 years. It's quite amazing. It's been a really successful scheme. And it's very appropriate for that sector because they literally move from project to project, and at times the lead contractor changes and subcontractors come into it. Very similar to disability services, how the same sort of issues happen, and that's why it's so important that we have this scheme for workers in community services, disability and aged care as well, because they have exactly the same circumstances as the construction industry workers.
Well, that's a lengthy model. It's not like it's been around for 12 months.
No, they've had a really successful model for 50 years, which just shows that these schemes work, and they work really well. They work for workers, but they also work for employers because it means they are not having to pay out a huge amount at one point in time because they're investing each fortnight a small contribution, and it means that workers have that entitlement no matter what happens, even if a company is to go bankrupt or anything, that workers are still protected through that process.
So let's talk about why the resistance then. So you sent off a letter to Deputy Premier Guy Barnett requesting a meeting. He responded. Can you run me through that correspondence, what you're asking for and what he's refusing to do?
Yeah, look, it's been really disappointing. So we wrote to the Deputy Premier, and this is something that we've been engaging with this government for over 13 years on, actually, because we first wrote to them prior to them taking government, but since they've been in government since 2014. And we've just been really frustrated. They've continually made excuses. So given that we now hopefully have the support of the majority of people in the lower house of Parliament, we wrote to Guy Barnett hoping that he'd do the right thing and come on board and help implement this that could really be some positive news for Tasmanian workers. Unfortunately, he's ridden back with a response that is so disappointing. One, he won't even meet with workers that this directly affects, and that's twice that I've put that in writing and twice that he's refusing to meet, which just is an absolute insult to those workers. And secondly, his excuses don't even make any sense. He basically says that Tasmania is somehow different to every other state that already has this scheme for disability workers, for community service workers and for aged care workers. He says, which basically seems to be alluding that it's because the state government doesn't fund them enough. So he's basically saying because we don't do our job properly, these workers should not get an entitlement that they deserve. So it's totally, unacceptable what we're hearing from Guy Barnett to not even meet and face up to these workers and have a conversation to listen to them. I don't think anybody thinks that's acceptable, and we're just so disappointed in the Deputy Premier, and we're going to hold him to account until he does the right thing.
What do you think he's basing his commentary around? So you said some of it doesn't make sense.
Look, unfortunately, I think he probably just goes to his mates in business, probably to the TCCI and to other peak employer bodies. And, those sort of groups always resist workers' entitlements. They resisted annual leave when we first had it. They resisted sick leave. They'll always fight against workers getting, a share of the profit. So Guy Barnett has chosen to sit with the wealthy few and not listen to the actual workers that are in there doing such valuable work in our community, caring for the most vulnerable in our community.
So already is happening in construction here, but what you're asking for in the sectors you're asking for, Chelsea, is already happening across other states.
Yeah, that's right, Esther. Most other states, excluding the Northern Territory, have a scheme at the moment for portable long service leave. As Robbie's mentioned, this has existed for construction for forever and a day, but most other states have now also included workers from community services, aged care, disability, and that is in recognition that often employers can change hands or have to move around. So it's pretty disappointing to see that, Barnett won't follow suit.
Yeah, well, back on that, Robbie, with Barnett. So you wrote to him, he refused to meet with you. I've gone through the correspondence and you did write back and said he's treating workers like second-class citizens and that it was frankly insulting. Have you had a response to your response to him?
Unfortunately, I have, and it's so disappointing. He again refuses to meet and talk to workers. Now, even if he had a justifiable reason for knocking this back, which I don't think he does, you would at least have the courtesy to meet with these workers. You're obviously happy to go and meet with the top end of town and have dinner with your business mates. Come and talk to some actual workers. And then to get a response that basically says, we don't care what workers in other jurisdictions get, is just so disrespectful to these workers who go above and beyond every day delivering for Tasmanians in need. And there's still no actual reason. He writes a 2-page letter, really just writing back things that we've told him. He gets facts wrong. He's saying that the scheme's only been in since the 90s in the construction industry. It's been in since the 70s. It just shows how out of touch he is and why, we need to take this fight up to him because, he's there meant to be elected by Tasmanians for Tasmanians, and he's certainly not doing that. He's caring about the few and not caring about the thousands of community service workers that go above and beyond every day and just deserve to have a decent break, which is why long service leave is such an important entitlement.
And Chelsea, you've met with so many members in these sectors in this push. What are some of those stories that they're sharing with you and their experiences?
Yeah, it's been heartbreaking actually to hear people missing out on their entitlements. I mean, we've had members that have contacted us who have been in the industry for 30 years. So that's 30 years of caring for people's loved ones, of providing service to the community. This person has actually missed out on their entitlements because they've moved employers or moved around the state to work in different areas. And what I'm really hearing is that, people who work in aged care, disability and community services, that long service leave is so needed because it's such a tough job. They love what they do, but also they need a break to be able to continue caring for people. So, yeah, it's been really tough hearing all of that.
And again, like with Guy Barnett in the letter, he's not going to meet with you. He's refused again.
That's right. He just refuses. I haven't seen that sort of action. I've seen politicians write back and say no, but to say we won't even meet with workers, that's really unprecedented that I've seen. And we've actually got other ministers within the government that have said they probably will meet with us. So it doesn't even make any sense. Guy Barnett does have a lot to answer for because he's treating workers with absolute contempt. He should be out there fighting for these workers to make sure that they do get a break from the, pretty intense work that a lot of them have to do. And he shouldn't be there taking the side of big business. The reality is that these workers have genuine stories. There's a member that of ours that reached 9 years and 9 months at a disability service provider in southern Tasmania. They were 3 months short of getting their long service leave. They had to make a decision between continuing to work with the clients that they'd been supporting for nearly 10 years because the provider was changing, or to keep their long service leave and go and work somewhere else if there's enough hours. They ended up choosing to stick with the clients that they'd been supporting for all those years. They lost all of their entitlement. To have a situation where the Deputy Premier refuses to meet with these workers is totally untenable.
You mentioned that you have got some support already in Parliament. Chelsea, who are some of those politicians that are supporting this and have listened to those stories from members?
Yeah, I think despite Barnett sort of coming out, and being so combative about this and really taking this ideological view in not supporting workers, it has been really heartening to meet with members of the lower house who are supportive. And we know that there's lots of politicians that are supportive. So far we've met with Labor and Al Haddad, who have been really good on this issue. We've met with the Greens, who again have been great and are really keen to champion this. And we've met with most of the independents who have indicated that they're supportive too. I mean, I really don't understand why he's taken this position. And as Robbie says, even plainly just refusing to meet with workers, it's unprecedented. It's not something I've ever seen a politician do. So it's really disappointing.
What's next then? So is it 13 years you said that this has been going on for, that you've been pushing for this?
Yeah, that's right. We've been fighting for this for coming on 13 years, and we're not going to stop now, but we are getting really close. So we know that we have got the support of the majority of politicians in the lower house of Parliament. We're currently meeting with members of the Legislative Council because they're going to be important as well. And we're also doing lots of consultation with community groups and with employer representatives. So we're continuing to forge ahead. We're really hopeful that legislation will be introduced this year, and we've actually got our law firm to draft the legislation. So we're really hopeful that we will have a legislated scheme by the end of this year. And we're going to forge ahead that. We're going to do whatever it takes. We know that we already have the majority of the lower house. We need to do a bit more work to get the majority in the upper house or the Legislative Council. And members are very much engaged in that process. They've been meeting with politicians and we've been really, apart from the government and specifically the Deputy Premier, other politicians have actually been really fantastic on this, and their support has been overwhelming. And in fact, we have more people wanting to move this motion than CAD, which is a great problem to have. And we're just really thankful of all those politicians that Chelsea have outlined that are in there fighting for workers and doing the right thing.
So anyone that's watching or listening to this, Chelsea, how can they get involved? How can they help? Can they do anything?
Yeah, there's a couple ways to get involved. We've got a petition up at the moment, which we're collecting signatures on, so people can jump onto that and, let the government know that this is something that's so needed. And of course, we'll keep talking to members about ways that they can get involved and hold the government to account around this issue.